Hey, welcome back to Nexion Analytics, y'all. So today I have a special video in store for you. It's going to be a full cradle-to-grave Power BI dashboard from thought to display.
Nice.
Check this out. All right, so usually what I do is provide you short or curated videos specific to a topic. So rather than doing that, what I'm going to do today is provide you a scenario-based product. And this can be driven by a CEO's demand signal. So they may want to see a product, even in your general field right now, based upon a current problem set or even a future problem set. So what you have here in front of you is a scenario where the CEO or supervisor or leader, whomever, really asked us, hey, so we have a lot of turbulence coming up in the next 180 days, and I want to see our workforce composition over that period of time. So the three specific questions that were asked were, how many employees are set to be hired in the next 180 days? And who are they? How many employees are projected to leave in the next 180 days? Who are they and why? And what will the overall workforce composition look like after these changes? So off the bat, we have a lot of information that we have to display, right? We know we also have to bring in a lot of data too. So what I have is a bunch of sample data, and I'll guide you through all of it, read it, interpret it, and then we'll maneuver through the entire process of delivering that data through Power BI too. But just to give you the full agenda, so the first thing we're going to do is mind map in Lucid Chart. So we're going to take those questions that we have and build out the KPIs that we need. And what that will do will help us identify exactly how we have to curate our data and what calculations and measures we need to map out. The next thing we're going to do is take a quick tour of the data in Excel, which is what we'll ingest into Power BI. The next thing we'll do is connect the data to Power BI. So it's not going to be anything too crazy. It's just going to be Excel files, all static. And then we'll manage relationships. So we'll go into the relationship viewer, start making our connections between the tables. Then we'll dive into Power Query, ETL, clean and shape, transform all data as necessary. We'll go into table view transformations. We'll validate our columns, adjust any columns that we have there as well, or curate new ones. We'll build any additional helper tables. We'll then build measures for hires, for losses, for net composition. And then we'll build the dashboard. So we'll finally curate the full aesthetic that we want to deliver and then make it brief and decision ready. And with that, we'll then take it to the last step, which is going to be generate decision points and recommendations. So obviously we have a lot to cover, so let's not waste any more time and dive right in. All right, so the first place we're going into is Lucid Chart. And what I'm going to do is simply just input the exact questions that were asked so that we can then branch out and figure out exactly what KPIs and measures we got to create. So the first up is hires in less than 180 days. Next up, we're going to have losses in less than 180 days. And then next up is going to be workforce composition. All right, so this is how I mind map, right? So I list out every single question that I may want to answer. You can also do it in a different fashion to where it's based upon the data that you already have. But if it's scenario driven like this and you're creating a ad hoc dashboard, but it's something that you probably want to retain over time, this could be helpful as well. So what I do for this instance is I'm going to list out all the questions as I did. And then now we're going to create that spider web of how many different data points are tied to each one, because we want to provide that depth, but also ensure that we answer the question that was provided to us. And we don't want to oversaturate it too much, because we can always build with a lot of personnel data. There's so much that we can do. But with this scenario specifically, what we want to do is just ensure that we provide the data that's parent to those questions. But it's always good to have the data accessible, meaning if you're ingesting the data, you have retirement plans, you have medical plans, all those kinds of things as well. It's good to have that data readily available, but not presented unless it's truly asked or it's parent to the scenario. But for this one, we're going to keep it simple. but later down the road, we'll also build out laterally so that we can bring in all the other data points and then create an even more robust product. All right, so the first one I'm going to do, and I'm going to make a branch over here. I'm going to change the shape. I'm going to make it a circle just so it looks a little bit different. And then this one is going to be a KPI of new hires less than 180 days. And what I'll do is I'll actually make this font a little bit smaller too. And the next one I'll do is a by name roster. So we probably want a by name roster. So I'll actually move this out of the way as well. By name. Next up, we'll create a total workforce after hires. And we'll do this month over month. Do hires by gender. We need percentages. So percent of filled versus vacant. And then we're going to do gaps in teams. And what I'll do is I'll change this color just so we know it's distinct. So we have the center point here for hires less than 180 days. We're going to do total workforce after the hires. So the month over month. This also ties into the losses too, right? So some of these are going to be repetitive because they're interconnected. We have percent of filled versus vacant. So how many positions we have currently filled, and then how many positions we have vacant, which is going to total to how many positions were actually authorized. We have by name, so associating the numbers to a person. We have hires by gender, so how many are actually being hired month over month based upon the role and the gender as well. We have gaps in teams, so how many gaps are there in teams. And then we're not going to dive in too much into the consequence of those gaps, meaning are they going to be able to accomplish those sprints in time based upon that team. We're just going to overall highlight the gap. And then the KPI that we have here as well, which is going to be all of these are really going to be KPIs for the most part, are going to be the new hires less than 180 days. And that kind of ties into this one as well. All right, so let's work on the losses less than 180 days. So it's kind of going to be the same thing, but just reversed, right? We still want to map all of them out. So we're going to say KPI losses less than 180. We're going to say by name. This one is going to be attrition reason. So we want to know exactly why they're leaving. We're going to do by gender as well. We're going to do month over month as well. We're going to do percent filled versus vacant. And then once again, we're going to do gaps in teams. Let's move this over here. All right, so I had to reformat this one just a little bit so you can see everything for hires, less than 180 days, losses here now, and all the different KPIs to the left. And then we have workforce composition. The one thing I do like about this application though is that you can simply click on a dot here and then associate it to another shape, and you could just draw that connection just like that. So super user-friendly. A lot of different dynamic things you can do here. All right, so the first KPI we want to start with is going to be net change. And that's going to be hires and losses. The next one we want to do is month over month. That's going to be total and percentage. Then total by team / gender. We're actually going to include branch in here as well. Then we're going to do job, type, distribution, then skills / roles at risk. And I'll delete this extra one as well. And this is what we have for all three questions that were provided. This is how I mind map. So I essentially take every single question that was provided to me, or this is just historical knowledge that you may have on a subject as well. And you're trying to determine what attributes and values you need to look at, and then also potentially bring in as well. So all of these are associated to a certain type of data point. So now the next thing we have to do is identify, okay, what is the data that we're looking at so that we can bring it in. We're not going to dive into, okay, is this the most accurate data that we're bringing in? Simply because it's static and it's manufactured here. So it's not anything tied to a real company, because it's just sample data. And that's something that you have to do within your organization tied to data quality. What we have here is a bunch of different fragmented tables that we'll actually access here momentarily, tied to all of these questions. But just to recap, so I have a hires less than 180 days. So we essentially want to figure out how many people are coming in, what are their jobs, what are their roles, what branches are they coming into, what gender are they, and then month over month, what does that look like over time? We want to do the same thing for losses. Additional data point here is going to be attrition and reason. So it's trying to figure out, are they retiring? Is there another job offer? Things like that, right? Because those are additional data points that we could provide to maybe try to keep those people in-house within the company as well. And then the workforce composition is taking all of those two previous questions and then rolling them into one matrix. So what they look like month over month by branch, gender, over time, and then those roles as well. And then the job type distribution. So what does it look like across your workforce, meaning overall, what's going to be the impact to that organization if they don't hire or lose certain people. And now we can take this even a step further. So we want to identify what is a recommendation throughout this entire mind mapping sequence as we're bringing the data in, as we're populating it, propagating it onto the dashboard. So one thing to think about would be, how would we influence more hires to a specific location? Maybe it's not a desirable location. So how could we go about that? Through other locations and essentially distributing that workload for that PI sprint that they're on, or would it be something else? So those are things that are creative ways that you can also identify this problem set and then come to reasonable recommendations. All right, so the next step is going to be step 3, which is going to be a quick tour of Excel. And we're going to take all the data, look at it, analyze it briefly, wavetop, and determine, do we have all the data that we need to support this mind mapping? All right, so we have 4 different Excel files that we're going to look at here. First up, we have company stats, contract details, people stats, and then position summary. Now, we're not going to use all of these off the bat, but we are going to bring in the data so that if we ever needed to iterate upon the application, we have the data to do so. So let's look at company stats first. All right, so first up is going to be the company. So we have the company ID, you have the company name, which is Nexion Holdings, and then there's no parent company. So this table, we're probably not going to need it too much simply because we already know the overarching company. This level of detail is really not going to do too much for us, right? Other than just aggregating as a whole how many employees we have by role. But even then, so it's not going to be too helpful. All right, so next up we have branch. So this one's actually going to be helpful because we have LA, Miami, Austin, Savannah, and Fargo. And we have the branch ID, so that's going to be unique to the locations. We know they're all in the USA, and we have the state as well associated to them. So what we can do here is we can put them on a map. We can show bubbles. We have the branch identifier so that we can split them out and associate people to those branches as well by role if necessary too. And this is going to be a good table to support us with our analysis. So next up, we have the roles. So the roles are going to be the different types of roles that are within each branch. So we have all these different departments and then the role names associated with them. Some of them are the exact same, some of them aren't. And these will help us with determining the exact genetic makeup that we have within a branch. All right, so that's it for company stats. So these are really good tables that are going to support us. So I'll close this one out and we'll go on to the next one. All right, so next up we have is contract details. So this is going to show us a contract that it currently is, the company that's associated to, so we know it's already tied to Nexion Holdings. We have the branch name. We have the contract type associated to the branch. We have the contract long name description. That's also helpful as well. We have a description of the contract in detail. We have a start date and end date associated to each contract, and that's also helpful. And then we have a total contract value and then an activity status based upon the start date and end date. Now we know since the data was pulled at an exact time and it's already past September 28th based upon the day I'm recording this, it's actually no longer active. So we'll probably have to update that and delete this column as a whole. All right, next up we have sales items. So we have the list of sales items by ID. We have the contract ID, we have the bill date, we have the revenue, and item category. Now we're probably not going to be using this one because we're not looking at revenue yet, but it's going to be a good table to have in the future. All right, so here's the largest table that we're going to have. We have employees. So we have a total of 18,000 employees in this company alone. We have the employee ID, which is distinct. We have a full name. We have the email associated to them. We have the company, which is the same one. We have the branch. We have the roles. We have the titles associated to them as well. Are they full-time or not? And then we have salary. We have FLSA, start date, and end date, which is going to be helpful, right, to determine attrition. Attrition reason is going to be helpful as well. We have the gender, so those are dates that we're looking for as well. And then we have personal data as well over here that we may need later down the road, but it's always good to have. We have future hires, so this is going to be people that are going to be hired in the future based upon their start date, and they're all have an offer status of accepted already. So once again, we have the same starting data, and the main thing to identify here is going to be the future start date. So this is all good stuff. We have losses projected, so the same thing based upon the current personnel, but this is going to be a split table for the losses for the projected date that they have in particular. But in total, we have over 1,000 losses identified here. And we have their start date, end date, attrition reason, all that good stuff. All right, so these are really important tables that we have, but we'll close this out. So next up, we're going to look at position summary. So this is going to be how many positions are actually authorized within that organization. So we have the branches, the ID for the branch, we have the location name of the branch, we have the roles, we have the role names associated to them, and then how many are authorized. Now we have two columns here for filled and vacant, and there's no data points here. We probably don't even need these columns because we can populate that in a custom table. But for now, they're there, they're blank, so no harm there. What we know, and the key thing really here is going to be how many are authorized. And just off the bat, we know we have 2,248 software engineers in Los Angeles. That's a pretty big number. That's the largest number we're looking at. And that might be our largest branch, just by briefly looking at this. All right, so it looks like we have all the data that we really need. So the next step we're going to take now is going into Power BI and loading all this in. All right, so here we are in Power BI. So what we're going to do is now create a blank report, and we'll just call this Nexion Holdings. All right, so the first thing we want to do now, once we get in here, is bring in our data. So we'll go into Get Data, and we know all our Excel tables are going to be actual Excel workbooks. So I'm just going to click on Excel workbook here, and we'll go ahead and start bringing in our data. So we got one at a time, so I'll do company stats first. All right, so we know there's 3 different tables, so we're going to click on each one, and we're going to bring them all in. We can see a preview here as well, but the preview, depending on how many rows of data you have, it's not always going to show everything. But since these are small tables, it really doesn't apply. So we're going to go ahead and click on load. I'm not going to transform the data yet because we'll transform it all at one time. And then our tables are here on the right-hand side. As you can see, they loaded. And since we had a sheet name in Excel, it also loaded the sheet name with it instead of just showing sheet 1 or sheet 2 or things like that. So we have the actual name tied to it. We'll do the same thing again. And now I'll bring in contract details. And same thing, we'll just click on everything. We'll click on load. We'll go to people stats. We have current, gains, and losses. We'll load that. Go back. We'll go to position summary. And we'll bring in all the different positions that we have. And it looks like we have everything. So I'm going to do the simple stuff first, which is I'm just going to rename my table. I'm going to call this future hires only. And then I'm just going to call this losses and capitalize each word as well. So it looks like we have everything now. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into Power Query. I'm going to edit some stuff very briefly. Then we'll go into Manage Relationships and then go back to Power Query, do our full ETL process. So I'll just simply click on this button here. All right, so the one thing I just want to do here is I'm going to bring every single table and have the first row become headers. So as you can see here, we have the column header here, and it's not being read. First, you can use the first row as headers and do that for every single one that's applicable. We're going to apply that and we're going to close it. Okay, so now we have even more relationships that were kind of made, right? It looks like chaos, to be honest. And I don't like Power BI connecting things for me. Not a fan of it. So I'm just going to delete all this madness. All right, so what I'll do is I'll go to Manage Relationships, and then I have all these different relationships that are already made by Power BI. So I'm just going to click on this button here, select them all, and I'll delete them. And it's going to ask me to delete to confirm, and I'm going to say yes. And there we are. Now we're clean. And then what I'll do is I'll reformat this so that it makes a little bit more sense and it's not all linear like this. So this is probably a good stopping point to really talk about fact tables and dimension tables before we map out the relationships. So fact tables are going to be something like store events, transactions, or measurements. It has numbers you can aggregate, such as sum, count, and average. It grows with time, so many rows. Example can be sales, employees, gains, losses, contracts, and sales items. Those are exact tables that we currently have. And then the other one is going to be dimension tables. So dimension tables are going to store descriptive attributes about the facts. They provide context for slicing and filtering. Examples are going to be dates, branches, roles, companies, and teams. And then a shortcut to really determine if it's a fact versus if it's a dimension is going to be if you ask how many, how much, and when, it's going to be a fact. Whereas if you ask who, what, where, and which, it's going to be a dimension. So the best way I like to look at it is if it's something that you're going to use as a slicer, something that covers the entire table as a whole, such as the company or the roles or the branches, locations, etc., things like that, and it fetches down and grabs data points, it's going to be a dimension. But it's a fact table. Fact table is going to store your by name list. It's going to store your transactions. It's going to store those itemized rows. All right, so going back to Power BI, we have branch. So we know branch is going to be a dimension. We know company is going to be a dimension as well. We know the role is going to be dimension. Sales items. Sales item is going to be a fact table because it's itemized list. Contract is going to be a fact table as well. Current personnel is 100% a fact table. Future hires is as well. Losses are as well. And the positions are going to be a fact table too. And the reason it's set up this way is because all this can reach down and grab these. But we don't necessarily need everything right now. We don't need sales items right now. We don't need contracts right now. But we do need all of these different tables that we have. So we have to find a way to connect them all. So I'll start with current personnel. So we know current personnel ties to losses, but the question is, does this table have redundant data in current personnel? Because if it does, then we truly don't even need this table at all. Now, I'll let you kind of do that on your own side to determine if the quality of data is the exact same or not. But for demonstration purposes for this video, I'll keep it just so we can fetch the data from losses specifically. But what I want to do is connect these two tables. So what is the one thing that we can use to connect the two tables? So you have to identify what is the common value that is the most distinct between the two. So let's go check out the actual tables and see what we got. So we'll go back into Power Query and we're going to look at current personnel. So we have employee ID here. We also have name. And then in losses, we have employee ID and name as well. Now, some people's names can be the same, and this only has first and last name. So it's probably not the best way to do it, nor is the email, because I don't see any middle names or suffixes after the email full name as well. Probably not a good way to connect the data. So we're going to do it by employee ID. So let's go here. We can scroll down to employee ID here. We can scroll down to employee ID here as well. And we can drag this way or we can drag this way. It does not matter. But we're going to connect them both. And then by default, it made a one-to-one relationship. And it's going to make it active. And that's what we want. It's going to make it active so that we can then fetch the data directly. And we don't have to use the used relationship tags at all. But this also solidifies the belief that everyone that's in the losses table is actually in the current personnel table as well. Now, if we wanted to change something, such as we wanted to use email, we can just click on email here, and we can click on email here. But we're not going to do that. As you can see, you have many-to-many as well, which probably signifies that there's duplicate emails. But it is a sample data set, so we're not too worried about that right now. But the employee ID is unique, and that's what truly matters. So we're going to click on Save. And now we have our relationship set up. The next one we probably want to do is going to be current personnel, tying them to a role. So let's go ahead and take the role ID and connect it to role here. And we know it's many-to-one. It's many-to-one because we have a bunch of people that have similar roles across the entire company. And then we have singular roles here defined by the role name and department. So this is going to be the unique one versus this one is going to have the plethora of personnel tied to the role. So we're going to keep it like that. Now, the inverse is going to be one-to-many. It's the same exact thing. The only difference is that the role table will be up here and the current table would be down here. It's no difference. It's just where the file is selected from. So it's many here and one here. And we're going to save that. Now we have a relationship for that. All right, so the company one, it really doesn't matter too much, but we'll just connect it anyway. So we have company ID and company ID here. So we'll connect it. We all know that it's Nexion Holdings anyways. There's not multiple companies, just one company, multiple branches. So we'll just save that one too and make that active as well. And the reason I'm saying active is because if it's inactive, it's not going to calculate based upon the inactive relationship. So if I made it inactive, it would just look like a dotted line. And you would get that instead of a solid line. But we're going to make sure it's active. And the next one we're going to do is branch ID. Branch ID to branch ID here. So we're going to connect those as well. Same thing. And then we have future hires. So we have all the same data for the people. But now what we want to do is determine how can we connect this to the branch in the role? What we want to do is get the branch ID. We're going to draw that connection here. We're going to make it many to one because we know the future hires are many people and there's only one singular branch tied to an ID. We're going to save that. So now we can see our relationship there. And then we also want to relate it to the role as well. So we want to take the role ID and associate it to the role ID here. We're going to say many to one as well. Now it's going to look a little chaotic, right? And then what we want to do is get our positions connected to. So our positions are not connected to anything right now, but it's almost similar to the future hires. So we're going to do branch ID here. We're going to save that. And then role ID as well. And there we go. And we're going to save that too. And now it looks a little bit chaotic, right? I don't like how the lines are drawing and interconnecting like this. It looks kind of weird. So what I do is, simply because I'm OCD, is I will move things around just so it's easier on the eyes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put branch, company, and role all in the middle. And then I'll move this around. I know my losses are only connected to this table, so that's easier to see. And then my future hires are connected to two tables, which is branch and role. But so is my positions. So we can just move these around a little bit. And it's a little bit cleaner to see than what it was. So I'll just put this up here just so it aligns with the top as well. Now you don't have to do it like this, but I do it just so it's easier to see as I'm reviewing it later down the road. And it's a little bit more symmetrical. All right, so now you can see the direct linear path that we have for all of our different tables. So then we can go ahead and save that. And now we'll go into the next step. The next step is going to be going into Power Query. All right, so the first thing I want to do here is I want to scan through every single column and determine that it's the right column type. So we know the ID is going to be a text, so is the name, region. The city is going to be a text as well. The state's going to be a text. The company, there's no issues there. We actually don't even need this parent company ID, so we can probably remove this column. Now the downside is, though, if you remove a column and it's saved and stored within Power Query as a step, then it's going to always search for that column. So keep that in mind, though, is if your data changes and it does not present this column the next time around, it's going to be like, hey, how am I supposed to delete something if it doesn't exist? So just keep that in mind as you're moving forward and you're determining what you do and don't need within your table. But since it's data static, I'm going to go ahead and delete it. And now we have no issues here. The role is all going to be text. The contracts, I'll go ahead and scan through this. Everything that's a date is a date. We'll go ahead and make this a currency. So we just adjusted that to a value, and that's going to be a text as well. And this one, we can just make it a date, not a date and time. So we don't actually need the time. And then actually, let me back up a step. So when I went to the company and I deleted my column, I want to go ahead and actually identify what I did here. So it shows I removed columns. You can go into Advanced Editor as well and read it, right? But not everything is truly like human readable on the eye, even though Microsoft does make it very easy to interpret and understand. Not everybody can pick this up easily, and that's okay. So what we want to do is put comments in here. And we necessarily don't want to always write directly in here. So what I'll do is I'll cancel this, and I'll go ahead and right click, and I'll go to properties. And now what properties does is allows me to put in comments associated to this exact step that I did. So you can essentially describe in a sentence format exactly what actions you took to explain to the developer that this is exactly what you did so that there's no confusion as somebody updates this or adopts this. So I'll say deleted the parent company column, and I'll just say non-applicable. And once I press OK, you're going to then see a little iCard here. And once you hover over the iCard, you can see exactly what the person wrote. Now, if you don't want to do that, or you want to have multiple options as well, you can go back to the advanced editor. And once you're in the advanced editor, you can see in green your comments. Now, this is the way you can write your comments too, is by that double slash, and then it won't actually generate any code or anything like that. It's just a way to write comments within Power Query. So this will tell you exactly what action was taken before the step was even occurring. So you can see deleted the parent company, and the next line shows you exactly how that was done via Power Query. So this is just a good practice, right? It allows you as a developer to build insights into your code so that as you iterate upon it, you want to refresh yourself, remind yourself of what you did, or you want to give a refresh and a reminder to your team, or if somebody owns this product later down the road, it's just a quick way to understand exactly what was done over time. So now I'll go into contracts and do the same exact thing. Now you can change the step name as well. I do not recommend it simply because Power BI does have a very good way of identifying exactly what was done in a very simplistic fashion. So you know the sequence that it was done in, and the name itself is just easier to interpret. And if you put in a custom name, what it's going to do is create confusion, especially if you have more seasoned developers. They might have to click on the iCard for every single thing. Whereas if you leave that by default, you only have to look at the iCard or Power Query to look at the description for those people that want insights. So for here, I'm going to say dates no longer have times, and the salary was changed to a currency value. And there we have our iCard. So next up, we have sales items. So we're going to do the same thing here. We're going to change the build date. We're going to make this a date only. We're going to add a new step. Same thing here. We're going to make this a fixed decimal value. And now we have that. Date no longer holds time, and revenue was changed to currency. Now I'll go to current personnel. Now I'm just scanning through everything just so we can see what we have. So it looks like salary, I'll have to mess with that here. Start date, I'll have to mess with that. The dates in general. It looks like everything else is fine. So go ahead and change the date for this one. We'll add a new step. And the reason I add a new step is because I want to see exactly everything that was done in sequence. Now, the downside here is that it doesn't make it as efficient and create the new step. So Power BI has to do something else after already changing the type as a default step. But if you want to optimize it, you can do that. You can adjust the current step. But I like to see everything in sequence, so that's just a personal preference. Now there's a bunch of nulls here once I change it to a date. That doesn't actually hurt anything. It's just a value saying, hey, there's nothing here, but these dates are here, so I'm just going to fill in the blank. No harm there at all. So I wouldn't worry about it too much. And then we have dates here as well, so we're going to just change that. And then we're going to change this to a fixed decimal value. And there we go. And then just to make my life a little bit easier, what I'll do is I'll go into properties. For the previous one, I'll go back to current personnel and go properties here. And then I'll just Control V. And then now we have the same exact instructions. Now future hires, we can do the same exact thing here. So just going from left to right, we're going to do a fixed decimal value. We're going to add a new step. We're going to change it to a date. Date here as well. Go to properties. And there we are. And same thing for losses. Now we'll go to positions. Let's see if there's anything that we have to do here. Now, filled and vacant, we actually probably don't even need these columns right now. Let's remove those completely. And we'll just put a note in here. Remove filled and vacant due to empty values. So it looks like everything in Power Query, for the most part, is done. We want to make sure we save. We want to make sure we apply as well. And then I'm also OCD, so this is just something I do personally, is I make sure everything is alphabetical, and just so it reads easier. Now you probably noticed something already, which is the current personnel, and we mentioned it earlier as well. Current personnel and losses are the same exact table construct. And this allows us to simulate, what if the current personnel didn't even have that data? What would we do? Where would we get it from? And that would be the losses table. And then honestly, I could go into current personnel. I could delete the projected end date and attrition reason and simply only extract it from losses. But since I'm not even looking at these columns in current personnel, because I'm only looking at it in losses, there's no harm here. And I could merge queries as well. I could bring in those elements into one master table, but it's unnecessary, especially if you have a distinct column that already has a relationship, so that those values are just going to be called upon once you start projecting your data onto your canvas. All right, so it looks like we're done with everything in Power BI. And if we ever have to go back into it, we'll dive back in, we'll iterate upon some things, and then go from there. But for now, what we'll do is close out of Power Query, and then go into table view, and then start adjusting our columns from there. All right, so once in table view, what we're going to do is go to branch, and we can see we're selected branch on the right-hand side, and we're going to look at every single column. I'm actually going to expand this so we can see what type of column it is. So this one is just a text, so nothing crazy here. We have branch names. We have the actual name of the branch, which is kind of redundant because it's the same as the city, but either way, it's okay. So region, we're going to change this. So we have country option here. We're going to change that. And you could see that it now adds a globe icon next to it. And this will help when you're mapping things out on a map within Power BI. So it determines the type of category it is and it reads properly. We also have cities. We're going to change that too. So once again, same thing. And then we have state or province. So we're going to change that as well. So we're going to do this for every single type of data file that we have, just so they're all formatted properly. So that's the first thing that we'll do. So company, we don't have to do anything there. Contracts, let's look at this one. So it automatically did it for date for us. Now we don't have anything set up for contracts right now, but we can later down the road. I have start date here, so I'm going to change it to a format that I personally like the most, which is going to be this one. And I'm going to do the same thing, which is this one as well, once again. And then we have the currency value. That's going to be currency. So we're going to change that. So now all correct. It may have done that in Power Query, yes, but this will allow us to see things a current way within the dashboard itself. So yes, you can do all the calculations, everything in Power Query, all that kind of jazz, but this will further it as well. Now let's go to current personnel, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to change this to be currency. And there's a lot of people that make $180,000, apparently. We're going to change the dates. We're going to change the projected end dates too. And although you can't see it here, it's still good to click on it and see exactly what it looks like. I'm just going to scroll down a little bit, and you can see the format is correct. We're going to change the dates of birth. So that's going to be this format. All right, so we just fixed the birth date. So we'll go ahead and go to address now. We'll click on address. Go to city. We'll do the same thing. State. Postal code. And it looks like everything is correct. And you always want to validate as you're just doing this. The next step we have is future hires. We'll go to salary. Change it to currency. Change the date. Change the address, city, and zip code. All right. Now I'll do it with losses as well. And go to positions. It doesn't look like we really have to do anything with positions, even though we have the branch name here. It's not the branch city, and that's okay. Same thing here. And then the bill date, we'll change this as well for the sales items. And the revenue, we'll change that too to be currency. And there we have it. So it looks like everything's done for all the categories that we had to update. All right, so before we proceed, I do want to just go back into the model viewer and just update one thing, which is I did delete the many-to-many relationship that I had here between current personnel and losses. We don't actually want that. And then I replaced it with a relationship between branch and losses. So you now can see that the branch ID is associated between the two. Now, I didn't relate the company to the losses simply because it's one company. We can also do that too. That's super easy. I can just drag that over real quick, real time, and just make that many-to-one relationship as well. And there we have it. And then no change to the other relationships that we have as well. And then for the other remaining tables, such as future hires and positions, we're not going to have a change there. And then no change as well to the sales items and contracts, since we'll use that at a later time down the road. Not in this video series, but another one in the future. All right, so with that said, we're going to transition over to the visual pane now. So we've done everything in Power Query. We've done everything within table view that we wanted to do so far. We can always go back later, but now we're going to go into the visual pane. We're going to start making our dashboard. All right, so there's a lot of things that we're asked to build. We're asked to really build the hires, the losses, and the workforce composition over the next 180 days. So we have a lot of different things that we mind map out within Lucidchart. So what we're going to do now is we're going to build all our measures so that we can display those data points easily and seamlessly. And then we really want to create measures that are easy, and we don't want to overcomplicate this process, right? We have great relationships already built out, and with that, we're also going to validate them just to ensure the data makes sense, right? So we're going to go into data view, making sure that the measures align to what is based on the relationship and the data, so we know everything is working the way it should be. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure I'm at home. I'm going to enter data, and what we're going to do is we're going to just call this measures. So nothing crazy. We're going to say it's number 1, just so it goes to the top of the stack over here. And we're going to click on load. And then it did not intake my decimal, so I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to press the Windows and period key. And I'm going to select any icon I want. And once I have that in there, I now have my numeration for my measures and then my icon as well. Just so it's distinct, it's easier to see, right? And now you don't have your measures bundled into a table, which does not look the best, and it's also harder to find that way. We're also going to go back into the model viewer. We're going to see where our measures folder is at now. So we could just align it wherever we want. We could toss it down here if we want. It really doesn't matter, but we're just going to put it here for now. We're going to go back to our report view and we're going to start building out our measures. So I think the first one we want to probably do is a total population, right? Something simple that's easy to show where we're at, current state, or based upon any dynamic view that we utilize. So let's go ahead and click on our measure. And then we're going to go ahead and click on new measure. We're going to click on control and then I'm going to scroll up just so you can see exactly what I'm showing and typing here. And I'm just going to write this as total. That's going to be my name. We're going to go coalesce, calculate, count rows, and we're just going to label our table that we're looking at, which is going to be current personnel. We're going to close that up. We're going to close up calculate. We're going to close up coalesce with a comma and then a 0. And there we have it. And now what we're going to do is we're going to just simply bring a card in. We're going to validate this number here, showing 19,000 right now. So we're going to put a comma there just so we can see the whole number. And now I'm going to go to the call out value. Display units, I'm going to put as none. And this is going to give me the total number. So 18,850. We're going to go do table view. We're going to go to current personnel. And we're going to see how many we have, which is 18,850 on the bottom left. So that number is solid, so we know that. And now we can go ahead and delete this column 1. Delete from model. And that will change our measures table to a calculation group, right? So now we have our total accurate measure here. So we're going to put that over to the top left. Probably be something that you're going to see first off the bat, right? So we want that probably big and bold for everybody to actually be able to see it. And then another one we wanted to do was males, and then we want to do females as well, right? We're going to put them side by side. Probably going to make this one a little bit smaller simply because it's probably too big right now. We want this to be a little bit not as highly visible as the total one. So this is supporting metric. So now we're going to also duplicate this, copy that, and I'll just put that next to that. And that'll be my female one. So now what we'll do is I'll just copy this measure. We'll click on new measure now. Control paste that. And we'll just say males. And now we're going to put a comma. We're going to specify the exact column that we're looking for. So we're going to type in current personnel. We're going to try to find the gender column. Gender's there. And we're going to say equals. And the text value is going to be M. And we just want to make sure that's the exact value, right? And we're going to run that. And then let's go back to our data real quick just to make sure that's the right data point. And it's actually not. It's spelled out male and it's spelled out female and it's sentence case. So let's go back into our measure. We're going to type out male. And then just for the sake of making it a little bit easier, we'll now do the same thing for females. And it's sensitive to casing, right? So you want to make sure that's the exact casing that it's supposed to be. And spelling also matters. So there we go. Now we can simply just click on males. And there we have it as 9,316 it looks like. And for females, we have a total of 9,534. Going to put that comma there too. And if we do some quick math, we know that this is going to total to 18,850. So our math is good, so no issues there. And that's just something I personally do constantly as I make sure as I'm inputting every single data point as I move forward, I'm always ensuring my math is good. So that's just a quick tip. You can also go into data view as well and go ahead and click on current personnel. And just for the sake of it, we'll go ahead and filter out females, and we have 9,316. So no issues there. So our number is validated. So in order to make this truly accurate, we probably have to make a date table. And the date table is going to allow us to filter down from now to 180 days out from now to only showcase that population. We can also delete some data too. We probably don't want to do that because we always want to have the data accessible in case we have to do greater calculations with it. So let's go ahead and build a date table and see how impactful it can be. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to click on table view, then we're going to click on new table, and this is where we're just going to write our DAX. So nothing crazy here, but we're just going to make a date table from scratch. So we can call it date table. You can specify more to a greater degree as you get more elaborate with this kind of stuff, but we're going to set a variable, and the variable expression is going to be stored as this name. So we're going to say start date equals today, end date equals today plus 180. Then we're going to return. And then what we're going to do is we're going to skip a line just so we can separate our variable. And variables, all they really do is let you use a common name versus writing out the expression every single time. So it's just calling this start date or calling this end date. All it is, nothing crazy, just saving a formula name, if you will, and using that instead. We're going to say add columns because we want to add columns into here. We're going to shift enter. We're going to do calendar. Our calendar start date is going to be the begin date, which is today. So rather than writing out the formula, right, we're just calling our variable. And then we're going to say end date as well. That's going to be our variable that we added as well. And then the specific columns that we want to introduce are going to be next. So then we have to just specify what's the column name in the format that we want returned. That's all it is. So we're going to say month, name, format, date, and then the format is going to be month, which is going to be long name expression of it. And then next three are going to be day, year, and then month as well in a different format. So we're going to do day. This part in the double quotation doesn't necessarily matter because anything in the red double quotation is going to be free text. So it's the exact format that you want. We're going to say day, and then we're going to say date again. We're going to say year, date, and then month as well. We're going to say month, date, and there we have it. And then I did have this red line, and I just made a little mistake here, which is I just had to delete this comma because there's not another expression I'm introducing. And we're just going to run that. And then now we have every single day from today to 180 days from now. And technically today is October 25th, so that's the format that we have. So we can also change this as well. So we know we're particular about date format, so we're just going to go ahead and change that. And then now we have the month numeration, we have the year column, we have the day column, and we have the month and the full date as well. So within the date, you have the date hierarchy, and you can extract anything that you want there. All right, so now that we have our date table, what I did was I brought it over, and we know that our losses and our hires are going to be associated with those dates, right? So we want to make sure that that data makes sense and they're connected, because if you don't connect them, doesn't matter what kind of filtering you do, it doesn't matter. It's not going to show anything, right? So let's just go ahead and go to our losses and go to projected end date, and we're going to connect it to date. And here we're going to have a many-to-one relationship because we know we have a singular distinct date within the date table, and we have a projected end date, which is many because some may have duplicate dates, and that's fine. So we're going to save that. And then we're going to do the same thing for hires as well. So future start date, we're going to bring the date over. We're going to show that too. And same concept. And now what we want to do is create a filter. So I'm going to filter out the whole page actually. So I'm going to go to view. I'm going to click on filters. And I'm going to bring my date over now. I'm going to go to relative date, and I want to see in the next 180 days, we have days here, including today, so we can see how much changes we have in this matrix. And then now we have losses are going to be 887 and 993 within the next 180 days. So we can hide that now, move it out of the way. Actually, we don't need the filters anymore. And now this will allow us to see everything that's happening within the next 180 days, right? We didn't have any changes up here because that's our total calculation for our current personnel. We did have changes here for losses and hires, which is hugely beneficial because we don't want to change this value because this is really like a static value, if you will. And then we want to know exactly what's happening in the next 180 days parent to these columns. All right, so the next thing we probably want to do is build a matrix. So I think the matrix is probably the best method to articulate how many people you have per branch by position, and then who you have currently, and the hires and losses over the next 180 days. So what we'll do is click on the matrix, we'll drop it in here, we'll resize it appropriately. Now it has the branch, the role, authorized, total, the starting percentage. We have hires in the next 30 days. We have losses in the next 30 days. We have our total 30-day calculation. We have our 30-day percentage that's based on the authorized. And then we have the same thing, but for every 30-day increment all the way up to 180 days. So I'm going to show you how to build this from the ground up. So first thing we're going to do is we're just going to kill everything that we made here, and we'll go ahead and start small, right? So I'll just delete all these two. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to bring in the branch name. So you have Austin, LA, Miami, and so on. You have the roles. We want the role name as well, just like that. And we're going to expand everything as well. So you want to see them all. And now everything else is going to go into values because we want those calculations showing over here. So we can minimize all these because we're not going to use them. We're going to go into measures. And we created a measure folder already, so no issues, right? The first measure that we're going to make is authorized. So all we did was we took a sum of authorized, and we're just going to drop that in here now. We also want to make sure this is a 1,000 separator, which it is. We have that listed properly. The next one we want to do is total. So how many do we have right now? This can be based on current personnel. So we have a measure already for total. We're going to go ahead and just drop that total in there as well. So there we have it. The next thing we're going to do is going to be starting percentage. So how many do we have right now? So all that's going to do is divide the total and the authorized as well. So you have starting percentage here. So all we're going to do is divide. We're going to do total and authorized. And our alternate result is going to be 0. And then we're going to run that. And we're going to make sure it's a percentage value. And I'm going to just turn it down to 1 as well. And we're just going to incorporate that one in there. And now we have our percentage. And you always want to validate this number too, right? The next thing we want to do is identify how many hires we have the next 30 days, how many losses we have, the 30-day total calculation based upon the hires and losses, and then the percentage of that against the authorized number. All right, so we're going to call this hires less than 30 days. We're going to say equals, and we're going to set up our two variable expressions here. So variable expressions, simply put, are just going to store a value. So it's going to store an exact expression that we want based upon a common name that we want to put for it. So we're going to put var as variable. Then we're going to call it today. That's going to be our simple name that we want to call it. And the actual expression associated with today is going to be today. And the next one we're going to do is variable. We're going to call this target date. And that equals today plus 30. Now, the next part we want to do is actually enable these variable expressions. So we have these common names that we built for these expressions next to them. So we want to take these and actually use them within the body of our DAX expression that we're creating. So what we're going to do now is actually call them here in the body. So we're going to make another one, and this one is going to be variable hires in 30. So equals, we're going to say calculate, we're going to say count rows, we're going to say future hires, then we're going to say start date for future hires is greater than or equals to our today function that we created. And then it's also equal to, let's go ahead and grab this real quick. It's also less than or equal to, we're going to close up that calculate, our hires in 30. So essentially what we did was, rather than writing a more complex DAX, we just took a common name based upon our stored expression that we have here, and we made another common name, but we're calling the common names that we built up here within the variable expressions, and we're basically saying within this body of this DAX, just make sure that the calculation that you're doing is only including people based upon these two dates. So from today and then 30 days from now, if they're in higher. If they are in higher, calculate that and give me the total value and return this expression that's calling these variable expressions up here. So it can be a little bit confusing at first, and I get that completely. You don't have to use variable expressions here if you don't want to, but it is a good practice. However, there are other ways to do this as well, but this is just one way. So I'm going to run this, and once we drop that in there, we can see we have a hire of 4 total for data analyst or Austin, less than 30 days from now. Now, we're going to take a little bit of different approach. I'm not going to have you build the losses and then the total and then the percentage. What I'm going to do is have you build the next one, so hires less than 60 days as well. So from 31 days to 60 days, and we're going to build out all the hires first and then move on to losses. So here I have a pre-built DAX expression for 60 days. And the only difference is that I added this piece up here. And it's just saying, hey, for today, my starting point is going to be from today, 31 days from now. So instead of today, it's going to be 31 days from now. It's going to be the starting point of the calculation. And then your backstop, your target date is going to be 60 days. So it's only going to look in the future 31st day up to the future 60th day. So that's going to be your calculation. And then all we did was just rename this to hires in 60. We renamed this as well to hires in 60. And then we just change our DAX expression as well. We did that for 60. We did that for 90, 120, 150, and then 180 as well. And then just to show you a glimpse of what that looks like, we have hires 90 here. So same thing. We have 61 days to 90 days. For 120, we have 91 days to 120. 150, we have 121 to 150. And then lastly, we have 151 to 180 for hires less than 180. We have all that built out already, right? Super simple, easy stuff. And the only thing that we're doing different for losses is literally just changing our reference locations for where we're getting our data. So no longer are we going to be calling the hires table, we're going to be calling the losses table and the loss date as well for each one. But the rest of them, they're all going to stay the same. All you really have to do is copy this, change the reference, and you're good to go. And that's what I like to do personally, is you reuse blocks of code so you don't have to rewrite things from scratch. All you have to do is just change a reference and you're good. But let's go ahead and simulate that. So we have hires less than 30. So now we're going to build out the losses less than 30 as well. And in order to do that, all I'm just going to do is I'm going to copy this whole thing, right? And we can make a new measure. We can call this losses less than 30 days equals, and we can paste what we had, right? So no change here. But all we're going to do here, change our reference table. We're going to change our reference column as well for projected end date now instead. And then we could just copy this and plug that in here. And then we're going to rename this to be losses in 30. And same thing, losses in 30. And that's it, folks. That's all we have to do. We don't have to do too much reworking on this entire DAX expression. And now we can just copy this and essentially follow the same blueprint we did for hires. All we're doing is just changing our targets for when we're ending our calculation and when we're starting our calculation as well, adding those 30-day increments. So nothing too complex here. All right, so we're going to add that expression that we just made for losses less than 30 days. So you have 4 hires, we have 4 losses in total. So that means our total should stay the same, right, for what we started out with, which was 390. And now it looks like we have the correct value of 390 days. And then the next thing we're going to do, you're going to build out our percentage. So what's the percentage of 390 divided by 463? So we already know what it is. We're going to do it for the 30-day increment as well. So we're going to go ahead and create a measure. You can do that simply by clicking on New Measure. We're going to say divide. Our numerator is going to be 30 days measure that we made. In order to call the measure, we have to say a single apostrophe. So we have to insert that. And we want to go ahead and click on the right one. And then our denominator is going to be authorized. Our alternate result is going to be 0. We're going to make sure we're at a percentage. We're going to make sure we're at the 1 for decimal values as well, decimal places. And then we're just going to go ahead and bring that in. And now we're at 84.2. So we know there's no change. So no issues there, right? So let's go ahead and build out the hires for up to 180 days. We'll build out the losses for up to 180 days. We'll build out the same thing for the total value of each one as well for 30-day increments up to 180 days. And the same thing for the percentage as well. And then the only thing I'm going to build out in here is going to be the percentages. So I no longer want to see all these other values. They are good to have though, right? But I only want to see the percentage because that's what the demand was when we were mind mapping. So I only want to propagate that. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. So I'll just delete all this other stuff here. And another thing here is that you guys want to validate everything, right? Even though you're doing this and you may have done it quite a bit, you just want to continue to evaluate everything that you're doing, all these calculations to ensure that you just didn't fat finger something. So it can happen, and honestly it does happen quite often. All right, so these are our total percentage that we have. They're starting out with this value and then we're ending at 180 days with these values. All right, so I'm gonna leave it like that. And now what I want to do is I want to also format all this stuff, okay? I want to make sure my table's in a good condition. Everything's all centered because right now it's not. So I want to make sure that the table is highlighted. I'm going to go ahead and go to my specific column here. I'm going to go to authorized. Go to header and total. I'm going to align everything. I'm going to do that for every single one, which unfortunately does take time. Okay, once you're done with that, I can actually adjust this as well because that did buy me some horizontal space. I'm not going to format the design of it just yet, but bring in more data points as well. So let's do total hires and total losses as well. So I'm going to put that over here somewhere, just so we have that data point too. So we're just going to copy these KPIs. We already have the measure in place, so that's kind of easy, right? Just going to remove that. We're going to say authorized here. And we already have our total. So maybe I'll just reformat this now. And then we'll bring in a slicer, and then that'll allow us to see specifics within an organization as well. And I might end up putting these over here and like stacking them up. You probably bring this over here more to them. Maybe shrink this a little bit, just so we have more space to work with in case we want to build out more stuff. I'll shrink this one too. That means we have to shrink these as well because they are supporting values. So 30 looks good. So everything's aligned now. So we're good there. And I do have space for one more. We can always add that too. And maybe we'll just bring this one down here or replicate this one. And we'll want to put the total for our starting number, which is our current. So we'll call this change the total name to employees. All right, so we're going to slicer at the top, and that's going to be for branch. So that's going to be branch name. And I want it to be a drop down instead. We're going to change that. And then we're going to control copy. I'm going to do the same thing. but this one is going to be for the role instead. So role name, and we're just going to call that role. And we're going to change that here too, just so it's all the same. And this one is going to be branch as well, and I'll change it here too. And now we have space to build other things as well. So let's go ahead and use that space. And I might just toss these up here, maybe, just because they're a little bit out of the way. I have room for a title, and I have room for more visuals now too. So we did make a measure for total or current personnel. So I think we should do the same thing for gains, and we should do the same thing for losses as well. So we have that to roll into a visual. Go ahead and control copy this. We'll click on new measure. We'll say total hires. We'll do feature hires. And remember, we already have the filter in place, right? So we know our data is going to be good, regardless of the date band that we might be looking at in particular. So go ahead and copy this KPI here. Just toss it over here. Bring that down a little bit. And we'll remove that. We'll put total hires here. Make sure it's a 1,000 separator. We'll do another measure. So I'll copy this one first. I'll do total losses. Do 1,000 separator as well. Control copy. Control V. Remove this one. Mouse this one here. We have 956 and 848. All right. So let's just test our interactivity between all our reports real quick, just to make sure everything works. Austin looked good here. 3762, 4163. Good to go. And then roles as well. Data analyst. Looks like we have 1906. All the numbers are matching up. No issues there. And that's just one simple way to validate, right? You always want to keep doing this before you push something into production, because it's just a good way to ensure you have accuracy when it comes to your report and the interactivity that the end user is going to have. All right, so the next thing I want to do is create a line and cluster column chart. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this and bring it over here. And the reason I want to make one is because it's going to allow me to see my hires and my losses and total personnel over time, over the next 180 days. I'm going to scroll down and select total hires and total losses, and this will just be my totals for now. I'm going to make a new measure now as well. That's going to be projected personnel. So I'm just going to go ahead and title it that, projected personnel is what it'll be called. It equals, and then we'll do total plus total hires. Kind of wish the IntelliSense was a little bit better so I could actually see what I'm looking at or want to look at. And then we're just going to actually minus this one. So that's an error on my part. So we're going to do plus hires minus losses. This will be our projected personnel month over month. Then we'll bring it to the line because that's where we want it. Right now it's not going to show anything, right? Because we don't have a time series built on it. So we're going to put time in here. We're going to go to our date table, and this is where our date table comes handy. We're going to go to our date, and we can see all these different attributes that we have. We actually don't want to use the date hierarchy here because I want to use month name. So I'm going to use month name. I'm going to put in the x-axis. And here we have the total hires and losses and the total personnel that we'll have at the end of the month, every month. And then keep in mind, we also have a filter on this entire report too. Just as a refresher, if you go back to filter, we have the date filter here for the next 6 months, including today. So this is why you have an accurate representation of where we're at. So we see that we have no hires or losses in April and May simply because we don't have that data. And you could also exclude those months just by shaping it to where it's only looking at the next 120 days. But we're just simulating here that April, May does have data points in it. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is format this just a little bit. So I don't really need titles too much. I don't really care about them oftentimes because it's kind of self-explanatory as it is. So I can just remove those. And we're just going to keep this simple. And we're just going to only change the title, the main title that we have. And we're just going to call this turbulence. And I'll go ahead and center that. And I'll do the rest of the formatting later. And at least this will give us a general understanding of what this item is. So the next thing I want to build is a clustered bar chart. And I'm going to put that over here. Make sure I get some space. And I'm just going to go ahead and bring in total losses as my attribute for it. And the data point I want to see is going to be losses by attrition reason. So now we have the total amount of losses by reason. And if I simply click on one of these, it's going to filter down appropriately. It's going to filter down here as well. And we'll see all the data points that we want to see. And if you couldn't tell, none of these measures change simply because they're static values based upon what's in the current population right now. You do see that this table did change, and I don't want that to happen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to simply ensure that my interactions don't align from this one and this one, because I don't want this to be clicked and then it show this, but I do want this to be clicked so it can show everything on the turbulence, the losses, everything else, right? So I just don't want this to affect this. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and select my visual because I want to ensure that this one does not affect this chart at all. So I'll select it here. I'll go to Format. I'll go to Edit Interactions. And then you can see all these options here, right? So all these options basically mean, hey, if you select the none, then that means it's not going to do anything, right? So if I make any selection here on my visual, it's not going to interact here. So everything will just stay as is. You can also highlight it and you can also filter appropriately too. We won't focus on those right now. We're going to just focus on the none. So I'll select that. I can now turn off Edit Interactions. And then if I select something here, it's no longer going to affect anything, right? So there's no value changes at all. All right, so we're going to focus on this visual a little bit as well. So we're just going to change the title, turn that off. And the reason I turn it off is because the title itself should naturally just be a good indicator of what the chart is. And if it's not, then you probably just need to focus on that maybe, because the more you have here, the less space you have in your visual arena from the horizontal and vertical space that you already have, which is limited to some degree. So I just focus on the title. And for this one, I'm just going to put attrition reason. And I'll center it as well. All right, so we have a bunch of data points here now, right? So I think what I'm going to do now is I'm going to probably build a tooltip. And the reason I want to build a tooltip is because if I select my hires, I want to ensure that I have a data point that lets me see what is the gender amount of my hires or even my losses as well. And the same thing for these as well. So you can see if I select retirement, I don't have the genders populated here. So I want to ensure that I have that value present too. But first thing, I'm going to change this. I'm just going to call it workforce for now. And we're going to create a new page. We're going to format this one to be a tooltip. So you can see now it gives us a small canvas to operate in. And then what I'll do is probably bring in a pie chart. I'm not hugely a fan of pie charts, but for this case, I'll do. And then what I want to do is select my losses. I'm going to go ahead and find gender. And then I'll go ahead to my measure now. And then I'm going to go find total losses. And that'll be one attribute that I get. And now what I want to do is just change the name of the page. And then we'll go here. We'll go to turbulence. We'll click on the paintbrush. We'll go to general, report page, and then it'll be gender. All right. And then if we select it, we can see the total gender for November, the total for December, and so on. And then let's just say we want to get a little bit crazy and we wanted to showcase both the hires and the losses in one space. What we could do is simply change this graphic a little bit. So we'll change this into a clustered bar chart. We'll move this over here so we have space. We'll make everything small. Actually, control copy this, put that over here so it's in the middle for both. We'll change this title. I'll go by gender, losses, and then we'll change the title size as well. We'll center it. All right, so that's a little bit more of a better fit. We can also turn off the titles for anything that we have. We'll change that, and maybe we'll just even change it to a clustered column chart so we can see it a little bit better, even more so. And then the x-axis, we'll go ahead and change that and decrease that. And then we'll delete this one. We'll now replicate this one. All right, we have a little bit more space to work with here. I'll bring this one over. We'll bring this one over too. There we go. And now what we'll do is simply change our attributes that we have. So we have total hires. And then we go to future hires. We go to gender as well. And now this is what we have, male and female. And we want to make sure that they're both symmetrical, right? So are we going alphabetical or are we going by value? So let's go by alphabetical. I think that makes most sense. So this one's female to male, so we'll just change it as well. Sort by gender, and then by ascending. And there we are. I actually want to change the title first, so by gender, hires. And then I'm going to select them both, and we will go to visual, go to data labels, or turn those on. And it still has the indicator bottom, which I don't want. So I'm going to go ahead and turn that title off as well. And now we have the most amount of space that we can occupy here, and it works out for us. And now I have gender hires, and I have gender losses as well for each month. And if I just scroll over the months, I can see everything that I want to see. Pretty cool, right? And then I can do the same thing here for the attrition reason as well. So we'll go to general. We'll go to tooltips and report page, and then we'll go to gender. But the problem is now that it has the attrition reason for hires as well. I don't want that, right? I just want the losses. So I'll actually have to make a separate one just for that. So I'll go ahead and duplicate this. So we'll duplicate, we'll call this attrition. I'll remove that. And we'll just keep that like that. And I'll call this one turbulence. And we'll go back to workforce. And we'll change this reference. And there we are. So 110 plus 103 equals 213. And there we have 213 right there. And then we probably want a title as well. So we'll go ahead and insert a text box. And the text box can probably go up here somewhere. Let's drag that up here. And we'll just call this workforce analysis. Make that bold. We can center it if we want. Doesn't really matter because we got to adjust this anyways. Go ahead and make that size pretty large, just because it stands out. And we also want to make sure we don't have this little scroll bar here too, because that looks kind of weird. And it's off-putting, right? And there we go. So it looks like we have most of the data that we really wanted to see, which is great. But now what we want to do as well is ensure that we go back to this table, because this is where majority of the information is. But this is going to be really up to you, right, on how you want to display this information within your workforce. You can do percentages. You can do 90-day increments if you want. You can do every 180-day increments if you want, depending on how you operate, or 60 days. It doesn't really matter. And you can also adjust it to where you show the total value too. But one more thing I want to add is going to be your net change as well. So that's what we want to include, because right now what I see is the percentages. And I'll go ahead and add the other attributes that we had too, just so we can see the full picture. I'll scroll down here a little bit. and I'll add what we're going to have in 30 days. I'll add the hires that we're going to have in 30 days. And I'm going to add the losses that we have in 30 days. What we don't have within this is going to be the net change. So technically for Austin, it would be 7, right? And then for data analyst specifically, it would be 0. Same thing here, 0. And then for here, it would be 6 because you have 1 loss. So scrolling through this, you might see the totals, but you don't want to see your end user or whoever the consumer is of this product doing math, right? And you want to ensure that they have the best data in front of them, but also so that they can consume it in the least amount of time possible, and then but also understand it too. So let's go ahead and build a net change over time for 30 days, and then you can replicate that for every other day increment band that we have too for these groupings if you want to ingest it yourself. So all we're going to do is click on measure. We're going to type in new measures, and I'll just call this net change less than 30 days. We'll go equals, and I'm going to do a simple calculation here. It's not going to be anything fancy at all. We don't really need to go fancy here simply because it's a simple calculation, right? So I'm just going to take my hires value that I have created, and I'm going to say minus losses less than 30 days, and we're just going to run that. And that is going to be a whole number value. And I'm just going to simply integrate that here. Net change less than 30 days. And I'll put it before the total. So it's after the hires and losses. And that is what we have. So you can see exactly what I was talking about is now portrayed here within the table itself. This is a great way to display the data too. So you don't just have your hires, your losses, your net change, your total value, but you have your percentage as well. So this is the entire picture of what you're going to have. And then this is essentially going to wrap up all the data together. So you have everything for that entire month in one picture. And then you can also see the net change you're going to have in 30 days is going to be a +6 growth, which is great. So you can also see which period of time are you losing the most amount of people easily here. You can also see that here as well, but this is just another visual, right? And then you could also see as well for the totals of the less than 30 days for the net change over time, if you need to do anything within your workforce to keep those employees for a little bit longer so that it doesn't hurt your workforce as much. All right, so we're back in Lucid Chart now. So let's just do a quick recap and ensure that we have everything that we mind map here integrated into our dashboard. So we have gaps in teams, right? So gaps in teams is also going to be the same in hires and losses. So we have that within the table because we have the branch and we have the roles as well. And we have the data associated with it. We have a chart that showcases new hires and losses over the next 180 days. We have hires by gender as well. So we did that tooltip. We don't have a by name, but we'll work on that one. Percentage of filled versus vacant. So we have the percentage of what we're going to have and then what we currently have as well. And then the inverse is going to be the vacant. So I don't think we actually need to showcase the vacant percentage because that's just simple math, right? But we have the net change as well. And then we have total workforce after hires month over month, which we have in our table. We do have our attrition reason as well in the top right. And that is also showcased by gender as well. And then if you want, you could also change the tooltip to even be by role. So you're not just looking at the gender, but you're looking at the role too of what's coming in. But the reason I did it by gender is because we already kind of have that value of the role within the table for the enumerations. So this is just a different data point to showcase the same amount of data elements that we have. We have the net change, hires over losses already. We have the month over month total as well, embedded within that. We have the total by team, branch, and gender as well. So you can just click on anything and it'll drill down appropriately. Job type distribution, we have the same thing as well. And then skills and roles at risk. So we can also build that one out too. So skills and roles at risk and then by name, I think are the only things we have left to truly work on. And I think we'll be done with this product. Okay, so in order to do a skills and roles at risk, I think what we need to first determine is what is the definition of risk. So maybe it's a percentage, a quantity, a total value, if you will, to determine if you go below that cap within your workforce, now you're at risk for maybe even dropping the ball when it comes to doing a certain project, right? Because you don't have the requisite personnel to operate on those projects. So if I'm looking at this right now and I look at starting, so I already know within PMs for Austin, I'm at 74% currently. And if I just look at Austin all the way to the right, they're actually going to go down, which is not good, right? So what does that mean? That probably means that I need to maybe highlight this data point in some capacity, because that's probably the lowest value I have of any of them. Actually, there's a 59% here. So let's go ahead and create a scaling mechanism to determine what is risk. So there's numerous ways we can really do this. We can do conditional formatting. We can do arrow indicators that showcase what we have within a table and how we're moving over time, and then what the ending value is as well. So for instance, if we're going up, it's going to be an up green arrow. If we're going down month over month, it's going to be a red arrow. And it's going to be based upon the prior month value to determine what that wave kind of looks like. But I think the best way to probably do this is going to be comparing the starting value versus the 180-day value. And then also doing conditional formatting for both of those too. And you can do conditional formatting for the 30-day to 150-day increment. But I think what we care about is where we are at currently and then where we're going to be at in the 180-day marker based upon the initial request that we had. So I'll go ahead and do that. So the first thing we'll do is probably just do conditional formatting first, and then we'll see if we can change this table to ensure that we get the data points that we're looking for in a different fashion if we elect to go that route. But first we have to make a threshold. We can put a legend over here in the bottom left, or we can put it somewhere else, or if it's just already known, that's fine too. We'll go ahead and put a legend here for the time being. So we'll just go to insert, and we can go to shape. Just really pick any shape. It doesn't really matter too much. And we'll just call it that. Then we'll go here to style. We'll go to text. We'll expand that. We'll say less than or equals to 75%. And we'll make that small. And then we want to go to fill color, and we want to choose a fill color. So that's probably going to be some type of red. And a white font isn't bad. You also want to change the border color too, just to match it. And let's just see what it looks like if we change the font color to black. All right, that's probably a little bit better. And bold as well. Okay, there we go. All right, so I'm going to copy that now. And I'm just going to put it next to this one. And we'll do the same thing, but we'll call this one less than 90%. And we'll go ahead and change the fill color. That's going to be some type of orange. There we go. And we want to change the border as well. All right. And we'll do the same thing again. We'll copy it. And now this one will be green. Fill color is green as well. And then this one will be greater than 90%. All right. And we can always change the colors as well. We could probably put a legend text box here if we want to as well. So we'll go legend. We'll put that right there. Make sure it's centered. Probably make this bold, italicized, and shrink the font size so it's not that large, because we don't want it too overly visible, right? Because it detracts from everything else we're looking at here. You want to go to format now. You want to send to back. So that's just hidden behind everything. And then if you want to make sure the effect and background is off, that'll also make sure it's see-through as well. And there we have our legend. So now let's focus on the actual conditional formatting. So currently we have percentages, so we want to affect all of these. So you can affect the values and also values and the totals. So the totals being the branches themselves, and then the bottom row as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to make sure our table is highlighted. We'll go to our paintbrush. We'll go to cell elements. We'll go to starting percentage because that's the area of interest we're operating in first. We're going to turn the background color on, and it's automatically going to populate a gradient. And we don't want a gradient because to me, it doesn't align with the legend, nor is it easy to see because it's one singular color. You'd also change that too, but we're not going to do it that way this time. We're actually going to do it based upon the legend that we have created. So we're going to go here to background color. We're going to click on that function. We're going to change the format style from gradient to rules. And we're going to go values. And then the first thing we're going to do is change it to a number. All right. And the reason we change it to a number is because if we go to values and totals, it completely locks it. So we have to change the format first before we add anything in. We also want to make sure the field value is based upon the column that we're operating in. I'm going to make 3 total rules because we have 3 different colors, right? And then I'm going to start from the bottom up. So anything greater than or equal to 0 and less than 0.75. And you could put a 0 here. It really doesn't matter. And you're probably wondering, like, why am I doing a decimal value? Well, the reason I'm doing a decimal value is simply because it reads better in Power BI for a number format versus a percentage format. So if you convert the percentage to a number, it's going to read it better, because if we did it just for a percentage, you could try it yourself too. It's not going to work properly. So, and that's the reason why I personally like to do a number. So we also want to match this color too, right? Because we have this legend here and we want to make sure it's the same color, but we're just going to select one for the time being. So we have this red here. And the next one we want to go up is the next step, right? So the next grouping. So you have less than 90% here. So we want to say this one here is greater than or equal to 0 and less than 75%, right? So anything 74.99% basically is going to be red. Now we want to duplicate that here, 0.75, so greater than or equals to 75%, because this is not equals to 75% here, and then less than 0.90, and that's going to cover up to the 89.9%, right? And then that also means we probably got to update our legend too, because it's not less than or equals to, and that's fine. And then this one is going to be orange. All right. And then same thing here. So greater than or equals to 0.90, and then less than, and we're just going to put 1. And I want to show you what that looks like if I just put 1. Because you assume that 1 is going to be 100%, right? But what if we have more than 100%? So I'll just show you real time how we can adjust to that and account for everything. I'm going to press OK. And now we have everything highlighted. You can see as well that anything above 100% is not highlighted. Not good, right? I'm actually going to fix this real quick too while we're here. A less than. That's going to be less than. And that's going to be greater than or equals to. All right, then we'll go back here. And now we know that the starting percentage is not covering anything above 100%. So what do? Let's go back to background color. We're going to change it to a 10, and let's see if that fixes everything. All right, and there we go. So the 1 reflects 100%, and the 10 reflects 1,000%. So that's just how you accommodate that. And now we have our conditional formatting. All right, so then what I did was I just deleted a bunch of different extra columns we had, and now you can see exactly what we have percentage-wise. And you can do this conditional formatting for every single column that you have. So this is just one way to really do it, right? All right, so the next thing I really want to show you is going to be drill through. So drill through is going to be great because it's going to allow you to hone in on a report directly from a value. So for instance, if I want to see everything related to this total data analyst then this population. I also want to see, one, who's in the current population, who's a loss, and then also who's a hire to this branch and to this position as well. So how would I do that? I would simply right-click, click on drill through, then attrition detail, and this is going to filter down every single thing based upon the branch ID for losses, current, and hires. And you can format this page however you want, right? But this shows you the by name granularity that we wanted. So before you start drill through, what you really want to do is ensure that your relationships are good. Because as long as the data is connected, you're going to be able to retrieve the by name results that you want. So you don't have to create too many bookmarks here to flip through reports and such. You can just drill through and have more interactivity to a different page. And that's okay, right? So what we want to do is identify what the common data elements are. So we already know that our relationships are good, so we could theoretically just make whatever we want for those reports and then just do a drill through, right? And a drill through is going to allow you to right click and just see whatever attributes that you selected. So essentially what I want to do is I want to right click on any of these values here, whether they're measures or not, and that's the beauty of it, right? Or by total hires, total losses, whatever it may be, and just see everything in one place, even for attrition reason as well. So I want to see everybody that's terminated, even if I select a value for finance, for example, and if I have just 4 people total for this type of loss for voluntary, I want to see just 4 results, right? But how do we do that? So we do that by going to attrition detail, and we're going to simply just build out a table, right? And ensuring that our relationships are good, which we know they are, everything's connected, we're going to simply start making a report. So we're going to go to table here, and we're just going to bring this over. Not going to do anything crazy. And we're going to go current personnel. We're going to go to employee ID first. We're going to go full name. We're going to go branch ID. And we have branch ID because that's going to be a common value amongst all the tables, right? So we want to make sure that we do have something that connects the dots between all of them, right? Between the drill through table that we're trying to drill through and then this table as well. And we can put anything else that we want as well. So we can put gender, for example, and then whatever else you may see. You want title, we can throw that in there too. Easy enough. And then we'll expand that a little bit. And this will be our current personnel. This will be parent to the table itself. So we're going to do current personnel, and we'll just center that. And just so I don't have to do the title again and center everything as much, I'm going to call this losses. But I want to make sure I don't integrate these values from this table. I want to go to losses. I'm going to do the same thing in the same sequence. So email or employee ID, then full name, then branch ID, then gender, and we have title as well. And then we'll do it again for hires. Just minimize that a little bit. Hires. We're going to delete all these. Go to future hires. And we'll go to employee ID. We'll go full name. We'll go branch ID. We'll go gender. We have it. Yep. And title. And there we go. And for some reason, this one's a little bit wider, but that's okay. All right, so now we have everything that we want. We have attrition detail. We have all our tables that we want to see. Now, if we go to workforce, and I click on this, I don't actually have a drill through option here, right? So that's a problem. So what I want to do here is add my drill through field. That's what really enables it fully, okay? So right now, nothing can drill through because there's no common value. Even though there's a common value within the table, Power BI is like, hey, how do I associate this with anything else? You associate by the common values you have inserted here. And the common values we have inserted here are going to be from the tables that are the originating source. So we have role name, right? That's going to be your title. You have branch. So we have branch name as well. And that's associated by the branch ID. And I'll probably just leave it at that. All right, so we have 2. And now if I go back here and I go on drill through, I should see 390, but that's probably too big of a number. So we're going to go click on this one, and we're going to just drill through a little bit here on the front end first. We see 4 total here. So now if I try to drill through, will it? No, because I don't have an attrition reason as well. So I'm going to make sure my attrition reason is here too, because this page is really based on attrition type, right? So let's go to attrition reason. We're going to add that as well. We're going to go back here, click on this. We're going to click on termination. We're going to right click now, drill through, attrition detail. And now we have 4 losses, right? Those are the exact 4 that we were talking about in Austin by 003 branch ID. And then we have 3 males and 1 female. And let's just validate that real quick once again. 3 males and 1 female, all right? So that's how you get your by name granularity that way. Also, it filters it by how many hires you have for that branch, for that role, and then how many personnel you have currently as well too. So this is how you expand out your report laterally, but also create greater interactivity so you don't have to make numerous bookmarks within your dashboard. And then let's just ensure that it works for this too. So we're just going to click on Austin, for example, and we're going to click on hires or losses. It doesn't really matter, right? And we right click here. We actually can't see the types of hires and losses by the drill through here, right? That's a problem. But if we click on this, we can see it. Now, the reason why we don't see it here is because we don't have that value that it's associated with here. Even though we have the whole table, it's not here. And the reason why is because this is based upon a measure. So we had a measure for total hires and total losses. So now if I go to attrition detail, I add even more stuff to my report for total hires and total losses. Okay, integrate that in real quick. And now we're going to click on Austin. I'm going to right click on either of these, doesn't matter. And now we have the drill through option enabled. Click on attrition detail. It's only attrition detail simply because current doesn't have that in there yet for drill through. And now I can see all my current personnel. I can see all my losses. So how many losses do we have here? How many hires we have here? And that data will match what we had showing for Austin right here. So drill through is amazing, folks. I personally recommend using it quite often or as much as you can, simply because it adds so much interactivity, so much granularity within your report. All right, so the next thing that we're going to do is we're just going to customize this entire dashboard and color it the way we want it, input any sorts of labels that we want, and adjust all the interactivity so we have a clean, polished dashboard. And from that point on, we'll go ahead and publish it and then schedule a refresh as well. But first thing, before we do that, let's go ahead and figure out exactly the color scheme that we want. So let me take you to a website that I use personally. All right, so here we are on Color Picker. And the reason I like this website, there's a lot of ads on it, unfortunately, which is kind of annoying, but you can load an image into here, and just as you hover over this image, it's going to change the color of the hex code that you have here, so you can extract any sort of color that you want. So if you want to upload an image and do that, you can. It also auto-populates a color palette too, so you can just select them and they'll auto-populate the colors where you may see them as well. So I think it's super cool. You can use your image just by clicking on this here. But if you like to just simply pick your own colors, you can click on Color Picker here and then simply just adjust the color that you want, right? So I think we're going to do something along the lines of, let's not do green this time. I usually do green. I want to do kind of maybe a blue. Blue's not bad. Like a light sea or baby blue. I don't know if sea blue is an actual color, but I call it that anyways. Sea goes fine to me. All right, so we're going to start there. That's going to be one of our colors. So we have shades here. So shades are awesome because you can use different shades of that color. I usually like to pick a light color as my primary, or whichever color is my primary, and then choose different darker shades. I'm always going to go with a black and a white and probably a gray as well. Those are my alternate, supporting colors. But as a additional color within that shade of blue, I want to probably do something a little bit darker, just contrast it a little bit. You could also do tint as well. So that's where the white kind of comes in here. And then you have different color combinations as well. But usually I like to go down to monochromatic because all of these are just too bright, too bold, right? Unless you're looking at this one here, whichever word that is. And all these other options aren't really the best. Complement isn't always too bad, but it can be not the best when it comes to UI design. So I usually stick with monochromatic for the most part. But here we have our colors. So we're going to click on shades here. So I have my primary color here. I'll probably pick this one or this one, and then a black and a white as well. So those are going to be the colors I picked for this dashboard. So looking at the shades, I really want to determine which color scheme do I want. Do I want a light theme? Do I want a dark theme? Do I want to create a selector so you can toggle between them both? You can if you want to. That is a little bit more complex, so you have to replicate your dashboard and then simply just have a duplicate of it and then create a theme for each one. I don't want to do that here though. I just want to simply stick with one color theme. So I'm going to try to figure out exactly which one I want as my background color, because once you figure out your background, then the rest kind of comes in easily. So with that in mind, let's go back to Power BI. We're going to saturate our color into our dashboard. So I think I'm actually going to stick with having a white background. We're going to stick with leaving a black font here too. And maybe we'll play with that later, but we'll leave that for now. And I actually don't need all these other tabs accessible easily, right? Because they're all drilled through. So I can probably just delete this button here too. And we'll leave that there. And then I want to color these ones. So the primary one, I want to have a different color versus the other supporting ones. So I think what we'll do is we'll go to our background color here. We'll go to general. We'll go to effects. We'll change the background color. And we'll just drop in our color theme that we like here. And now we're going to add some more flavor to this too. So we're going to create a visual border. It's going to be the same color as what we just chose. And I'm going to do rounded corners, probably like a 7. Let's see how that looks. A little bit too tall. So I'll shrink that a little bit, right? And I want to make sure everything's the same height as well. And that's the problem. If you don't have that, then it's going to look weird, right? So I'm going to go here, go to my paintbrush again, go to general, go to properties. My height's 104. So I'm going to select all of these now. I have my supporting ones, and I'm just going to change the height to 104, but still ensuring that you can still see the full text, right? And then maybe we'll test it out with the white font as well. See how that looks. I think, what if we actually change this to a black font and leave that one? Probably not. I think black's probably the safest bet, unless we change it to white and we bold it. That could be a little bit easier on the eyes to see, but I still think black is probably the safest to go here. All right, so I'm going to select all of these now. This is going to be my supporting color. So I'm going to go to my paintbrush, go to general, go to effects, select my background. And then I'm going to go ahead and select the visual border. I'm going to change it there too. And now you can see it's a little bit hard to see the font for these. So it's probably safest to put a white one here. You can probably make these bold. And if we're going to make that bold, we probably want to make this one bold as well. All right, there we go. One thing we did not do was change the border to have rounded corners. We're going to do a 7 there. All right. So that's looking pretty good. We can also change the font too if we want to. So we can highlight everything, call out value. We could change it to Calibra, change it to this one. I usually like Arial, so I usually change it to Arial. You can also change it to Calibra if you want. Not a huge fan of that one, but I think we'll stick with Arial for the time being. And then we'll decrease the size a little bit just so everything is visible. And we did have this one as a larger font, but we changed it simply because all of these are supporting colors. So off the bat, you're going to have your eyes get glued to this, right? Because it's a different, distinct color than everything else. All right, so let's move on to everything else here. So I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing for this one as well. So I can literally click on Format Painter here and click on this, and I'll just adopt everything, right? So no extra work you have to do. So that's one quick hack for you. All right, and the attrition reason, let's go ahead and click on this one. We're going to format this a little bit, and we probably want to put a background on this one. But what background do we want? Do we want to do this background, or do we want to do the other background? So I think we'll probably stick with this background. Do the visual border again as well. Do the same thing there. Do 7 points just to keep everything uniform a little bit. You can put a shadow if you want to as well. I usually don't put a shadow quite often. And I'm going to go to visual. I'm going to scroll down to bars. Now, if you have different categories, you can always change them as well. But I want to keep all the bars the same color. I'm going to keep it that color there. You can put a border on it too if you want, just to add more depth. I usually don't do that. And then data labels are huge, right? So adding data labels to this is going to be super important because it's going to allow you to see the actual value without hovering over something. Because hovering over it's going to be our drill down. So you want to still provide the value, but also depth as you hover over it. So we're going to click on value now. We're going to change the font color to white so you can actually see it. And we're going to increase that size too. And make it bold. We can keep everything Arial if we want. And the problem is right now, it's not increasing in size, the font, because it's not large enough. But once I increase this a little bit, it will actually increase the font size. And then my X and Y axis is going to be white font. You can make that bold if you want, or you can just make it a larger font. And same thing for the X as well. And then the attrition reason, going back to title, will change that to white as well. And you can underline this if you want to. You can make it bold, Arial, then bold. Don't like the Arial bold, so I'll just leave that there. I'll increase the size. And there we have attrition reason. And then one more thing I like to do with my data labels is I like to put a format behind it. So I go to visual, I go to background and turn that on. And now I have something behind it, right? So I could change the transparency color and it makes it pop a little bit more. So it's super distinct, super visible, easy, right? Okay, so now let's work on the turbulence one. So what we want to do here is go to paintbrush and let's turn on the data labels first. So do we want the data labels on for everything or just some of them? That's going to be a key thing to put here. So probably the total hires, I'll go ahead and turn this off. The total losses, I'll go ahead and turn this off. And then now I just have it on for projected personnel. So now what I'm going to do is determine, do I want to make the background this color too, or do I want to make it the same as this color? So you want to add a little bit more flavor to it and have two areas of interest, or do you want to just keep it as one? Because if we did two, what would it then do is advise the user that's looking at the product to be like, okay, these are the two distinct ones. So I should probably look at this and look at this because they go hand in hand, right? Or do we want to direct them somewhere else? And that's kind of how I look at a product is if I want to saturate something with color and make them more distinct, I want to probably have some items as secondary items and some items as primary items so that I direct my user without even talking to them about how they can navigate through a dashboard. So let's go ahead and put this as the primary point as well in addition to this one. So we'll go ahead and go to general and go to effects, we'll go to background and we'll change the color. I'll make that blue. We'll change the visual border as well. Do 7 there. All right, the title is probably going to be bold. Going to make that Arial as well. And we want to match the font size we have here so we don't have multiple font sizes. So that one's going to be 16. So I can click on this one now and just change this one to 16 as well. And if we're underlining, let's go ahead and keep it the same as well. Now we'll go to Visual. We'll open up our X, and then we'll change the color to black here. We'll do Arial as well. Open up the Y. Values, we'll change the color to black, Arial. Then the legend as well. Make that black. And the grid line. So right now you can't see any of the grid lines, which is not good. So if we change it to white, what would that look like? Probably not that hard to tell if there's a grid line or not. So you probably want to have it a little bit darker. All right, that looks good. A little bit of a dark gray. You could change the width as well. I think that's a little bit too dark. I think 2 is actually a good one to have. And if we changed it a little bit, that might be too light. So we'll go ahead and go back here. Leave it there. And now the next one's going to be columns. So we can determine for hires and losses, since they're columns, what colors we want to make them. So hires, we'll go ahead and change that color, and we'll change it to that green we had. And it automatically changes the legend color too. And then the losses. So what color do we want to make the losses? Do we want to make it some sort of red? Probably not. It just doesn't flow well, right? What if we did a white? That's probably going to be a little bit better. So we can go back to our color scheme too, over here, and determine, is there another color that we want? So right now we have the primary color as a background. We have the 50% shade. And if we want a darker color or a lighter color, we can go off a tint here that we have. So maybe this one. So I'll go ahead and copy that. And then instead of the white, I'll go ahead and plug that in and see what it looks like. I think it's a little bit too off of a color. So maybe we'll go ahead and go here, and now we'll just play around with the color on exactly what we want to see. All right, so I think we just stick with the white. I think that's probably going to be the best color for this one. All right, and now we can look at the projected personnel. Do we want to change the orange color? And honestly, I think orange is probably a good fit here. And then now let's go to our data labels, and we'll just simply change the transparency here. So it stands out a little bit more, similar to this one. We could also change the boldness of the legend too, but I think we'll keep that for now. And once we click off, we have the nice curved border on the edges. And I did not change the font color of this one. I think we just leave that one there as well. All right, so the next thing we have to do is work on the table. So we'll go ahead and click on this one, and we'll determine exactly what we want to see. And I think also what I'm going to do is probably make the 180-day percentage have conditional formatting to match this one, because we can see what the starting point is, and then also what we're going to have in 180 days. And you could determine if there's a growth or a decrease based upon the legend that we have here. So I'll go ahead and do that real quick. But once again, we'll go to cell elements. I'll click on 180-day percentage. I'll click on the function for it. We'll go to rules. We'll go to values only, change it to number. We're going to add 3. Then we're going to change to values and totals. We're going to make sure our fields can be based on 180 days percent. Then we're going to do 0.9 here. We're going to do 10 here. We're going to do 0.9 here. 0.75 here. 0.75. Now we don't have the color saved, so I'm just going to go ahead and pick a random color for now. And I'll go back to it and change it. All right, and then we're going to press OK, and there we have it. All right, so now let's go ahead and format this table exactly how we want it. Now, tables are going to be really hard to format and present in a clean manner, simply because there's so many different attributes in it. And you can do so many different styles with it as well. So we can click on Visual and click on Style here. We can go minimal if we want, bold header. Not a fan of that one. Alternating rows. I kind of like that one oftentimes. We have contrasting, not a fan of that. Flashy rows, bold and flashy rows, which is probably the worst one. We have sparse, and then we have condensed. Don't like that one either. So I'm going to go with alternating rows. And now I'm just going to format exactly how I want to format it, right? So I can change the background, do all that kind of stuff. We know that this is a supporting visual, so it's not going to be a primary one like this. So I'll go ahead and go to General now. Go to Effects. Change the background color and make that this green color that we had. Visual border, I'll go ahead and turn that on too. Change it as well. All right, make that a 7. Now we know there's not too much extra space on this side. There's not extra space too much on this side. We just have enough for a scroll bar, which is perfect. Now I'm going to go back to visual. And I don't have a title here intentionally. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. You don't always need a title, in my personal opinion, but you can always add it if you want to. All right, so column headers. What do we want to do with the column headers? All right, so column headers, we're going to change this background color. Let's see what it looks like if we had just this one. That's not actually too bad. What if we change it to this? Probably a little bit harder to see, right? We can probably leave it there. We can make the text bold if we want to, or we can make it black. Probably not as easy to see if it's black, so we'll probably leave it at white. Change it to Arial too, and then we could center everything if we want to as well. I personally like to. And now probably bolden it once it's Arial. It's a little bit better to see. We could also change the row headers if we want to as well. Probably won't do that. All right, so now we're going to go to the row grand total. Change that background color to be the same one. All right, we got to change the font too to match it. And make that bold if we want to as well. And we just turn that on, apply to labels. There we have it. And I probably want to increase the size of the values too, just so they stand out a little bit. All right, and now the next thing I'll probably do is just work on the grid lines. You can click on grid here. You have vertical, we have horizontal, we have border options too. But we have one weird blue color here, so we probably don't want that. So we can go ahead and change that color if you want. We have the green now. And then the horizontal grid lines, if we just change that to green, that's what that would look like. So if we change it to that blue color, a little bit lighter, not as harsh, right? So not too bad here. And also, if you don't want to have the conditional formatting for the cells, once again, you could always change it to just be the font too, which is completely fine. And that might not introduce as many different colors within your dashboard too. And then I'm just going to simply elevate this one so it aligns with this one here. And I'll probably make it a little bit bigger and wider. And move these just to the left a little bit, just so they're centered underneath it. And lift them up as well. Think about making the callout labels a little bit smaller too and italicizing them. There we have it. We can change that to Arial as well. And then we'll go ahead and match format for these. So now we have branch and we have the roll. Now we'll go ahead and work on these. So you want to make sure that the slicers are visible clearly so that you can operate within them. So what we'll do is ensure that the color scheme matches, right? We can do a green as well if you want to, but maybe you want to point them in the direction of this as well. So we'll probably click on this. Format Painter, click on this, and do it again. All right, so right now, it doesn't blend well. Click on the drop down, it's a white background here, which is fine, but I think it's too much blue back to back, right? So you probably don't want to do that. So let's go ahead and go on the paintbrush, go to general. Now we could change this just a little bit, right? So what we want to do is make the background off. We're going to turn the visual border on. The visual border is going to be this. Maybe make the width a little bit larger. We'll go here, go to properties, change the height. Probably to about a 60. Change the width to about a 200. And now we can go to visual and go to slicer header. We'll increase the font and make it bold. We'll change it to Arial as well. Maybe italicize those and just decrease the size a little bit. Now go to values. You can change the font color. We can make it blue if you want to. Bolden it. And then change the background of it. Make that blue properly. Or even in green. change the font color to probably a white. And then maybe we'll go back to general, change the visual border to this color too. And I'll probably go here, do another color of this. And now let's just decrease the size of the values. About a 9. And then background, I'll go back here again. Maybe we'll just leave it at that color. And I'll go ahead and go to general one more time, go to visual border, change the width to 1. All right, now it pops a little bit. Go to general, let's see effects, and we can put shadow here if we want to as well, just to make it pop. We're not going to do that though. And now we have our options here. Well, you probably don't want them bold. We're going to go back to the paintbrush. We're going to turn the bold off. And now once we click on it, we have our values. So after all that was done, I went back in. I was like, I don't really like this color, right? And that happens quite often too. And that's okay, right? That's part of the development process. So what I did was I changed the 50% shade I had to a 60%. So I'd have more of a greater contrast between my colors. And then what I'm going to do as well is I'm going to simply bring this down a little bit. I'm going to increase the size of this one. And now it kind of closes up the space a little bit that I had. And now what we want to do is insert a shape. And we want to do that for the title we have here. So we insert a shape. And we can pick whichever one we really want. I'm probably going to do a pentagon arrow here. I'll bring that over here. I'll increase the size a little bit, just so it covers enough of the title. I'll go to shape. We'll turn on the fill in the border. So the border is going to be the same color. So we'll turn the fill on as well. And we'll see how that looks. We'll format this. We'll send it backwards all the way to the back. And now we have our title here. And then we're going to go ahead and turn off the background for this one. Then we'll change the font color to a white. We'll bring that over here. We'll decrease this a little bit. And there we have our title. All right, so I did it one more time. I know you guys probably think I'm crazy by now, but I changed the blue color that I had to a green. And it just didn't sit right with me fully. Maybe it didn't sit right with you either. But now I think it looks a little bit better. And I just want to continue on the shape one that I was talking about here now. I can also change the shape just by clicking on shape here and pick whichever one I want, right? So I want to go here to arrow. I want to go to chevron arrow maybe. And that one actually looks a little bit better. Pentagon arrow. We have heart, which is not going to work for this. Hexagon, probably not the best. That's not going to work either. And some of these you have to have just a larger shape. You can do a rectangle if you want, rounded rectangle, speech bubble, trapezoid, and so on. So I'm going to just keep it at what we're going to have it when I mentioned it earlier, which was chevron arrow. I do like this one. And now I'm going to play around with the background color again. This is what I usually do is I go change my colors quite often, even though I may have something as a blueprint for what I initially want to design it as from Color Picker. I'll go in here and I'll see if it actually flows. Like, does it actually work with what I'm doing here? And if it doesn't, I'll just simply change it. And that's okay, right? It's not a huge deal. But you also want to ensure that you're comfortable with the product, but also ensure that your customers and your primary people that are ingesting this are comfortable with the product too. All right, so there's no commas here for the 1,000 separators. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this again. All right, so you can see my projected personnel measures here. So I clicked on that. It's a line axis, right? So I want to make sure the 1,000 separators is on. And there we have it. All right, so now let's go into background color. And we're just going to click on the paintbrush here for the page. So we're going to make sure we're not clicked on anything here. We're going to go to canvas background. And we could change the color to whatever we want, right? So let's just say we have this color here. And we slowly bring that color in. All right, we don't want to do too much because then it'll just blend with everything, right? But maybe we want to do a little bit darker color off the bat and just introduce that too. See what that looks like. That's probably too much. So decrease that a little bit more. I think about 86% is pretty good. And what I want to do here as well is probably go to my card, my main ones that I have, and go to visual border. And I'm going to change the visual border to be that darker color for this one too, just so it stands out and pops a little bit more. And then I think I'm going to go ahead and go to my turbulence. I'm going to add a shadow. I might add a shadow on this one too. And maybe just everything. See what that looks like real quick. Yeah, that's not bad. You can also change the shadow angle to be left, top, whatever it may be. But default is going to be bottom and right. Then now it looks like everything's kind of popping on its own, right? Which is good. We have the same colors here for these two. So I like that. And now I think the only thing that we're probably missing is going to be our icon. So we're going to introduce some icons into here and then wrap up our dashboard in full. All right, so we want to introduce a few icons. But in order to introduce icons, we probably want to have space for them, right? So we're going to overlay them on the cards here, but we don't have enough space on the cards right now, which is a problem. So we have to ensure that we can accommodate the growth of the card as well. So if it goes over 1,000, we might have space right now here, but doesn't necessarily mean we're always going to have space there, right? So we want to ensure that we have the adequate space for growth and also the current state as well. So we probably want to go ahead and increase the size of our cards and then shift everything more inwards for these charts and such. So I'll go ahead and shrink this a little bit, right? We don't actually need the amount of space that we have for all of this stuff. And we could also decrease and remove the months that we have here if we want to as well. And that means we have to decrease this one too. So the downside here is I remove the ability to see the 100 days. So how can we adjust for that, right? So what we can do is we could simply go ahead and go to the font and decrease the font, or we could simply drag this over, make sure it fits properly. We could change the size of this one too. But if we do that, you see how it's going to wrap the text? We don't want that. So we can also simply just go to the values and decrease the size. To decrease the size, change the font as well, and we decrease the total amount, the size, shrink the total over too, and now it looks like we have enough space to see everything. And if we wanted to as well, we can also change the title names too. So it can be less than 30 days. In this format here, we can remove the percentage sign, which also removes an extra space. It decreases the width as well. So that's just another way to do it. So I'll go ahead and simulate that for you. So if I go here, then I simply just change the value here, less than 30 days. And now we just bought some space. Now, even though it's only one character space that we're buying, it still does quite a lot in the grand scheme of things. As you can see here, now we can see everything. And we have no horizontal scroll bar as well. All right, so now that we have that, we can go ahead and just increase the size of these cards here. And this one's going to be a little bit smaller. And I'm going to go ahead and just format Painter for all of these. So I tried to format Painter, and Format Painter does not do it for dimensions as well. So we'll just have to do it the hard way, which is fine. You can also copy them all and then just change it within properties, but it's only 3, so it's not too bad, right? We'll go ahead and click on all these now. We'll just center them. And now we know this one has enough space for icon, but these ones actually don't, right? Because you can see the authorized number, there's not enough space on the left-hand side, which is where I'm going to insert the image. So I'm going to decrease the size here. And that's probably a good size there, 26. And I'm going to increase this one actually, because we have more space here. And that's just standing out even more now. And now I want to simply increase this one too. We want to take some space from here if we can. And we're able to. Now go ahead and shift this over to, and to align it, I'll align this one as well. And now we have space. So we're going to go ahead and format this one. Did that. And format this one as well. And I'm actually going to shift these items a little bit to the left. We'll increase this one just a little bit. We have a little bit of space there. All right, and there we have it. And then before we go to icons, we're going to go ahead and adjust all the other options that we have here real quick, just so they match everything that we have. So if we see turbulence, we're just going to simply go here to attrition reason. I'm a format painter. And I'm going to go here. And then now we have too large of a title. So we're just going to decrease the size of the title just a little bit. And I'm going to remove the underline. I don't need the underline here. And I can probably remove the by gender. So I just could put losses here because I think we already know we're clicking on attrition. So by virtue, it is losses. I'm going to format that one here too. And we're going to change the title here as well. We're going to do the same thing here. I'm just going to copy this one again as well. And then we're going to change the title as well. And then for attrition detail, I'm going to do this table here. I'm going to format here. Attrition detail, and I'm going to click on this one. And I just have to turn the title back on now. And we'll go ahead and make that bold. We'll go ahead and center that. We can make that Arial, make that white. Or we can make it this color if we want to as well. Or white, it doesn't matter. I think we'll go with this color. Make it underline. And now we'll format that. Put that over here. Format that one too, put that here. And same thing, we'll go here to current and put that here as well. And now when we hover over something, we see the exact difference between the two. But you can see they're like little different cards, right, between them both. You can see that there's a difference between them because there's a space, right? There's like a little line, and then you can see the rounded chart. Don't really want that, so I don't like that too much. So I'm going to go here, visual border. I'm going to go ahead and turn that rounded corners off all the way. And I'm going to make the border a different color. And now I'm going to format that and put that over here too. Now if we go back here, we click on it. Now we can see the difference between the two. Now the green doesn't blend too well when you're looking at this. So maybe we'll do white. So let's go here, go back to general. Visual border, and we'll change it to white. Format that. And now, if I click on it, a little bit better. And we probably want to update that for this one as well. So I'll go ahead and format painter here. Same thing. And there we have it. And we can still do all our drill throughs. So current, and we have our drill through or personnel here. We can also sort them by name. So they're formatted the way we want it. If I click on my workforce now, drill through, current, it's always going to be sorting by A to Z. Okay, so now we're going to incorporate icons. So I want an icon for workforce analysis on the left-hand side here. I want an icon for employees, authorized, all these different KPIs that we have here. And I think that'll be it. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 total. So let's go ahead and find 8 different icons that work for us in this format. We also want to ensure that we have the right colors too. So I want to have one that has the dark green color we have here for this card, but the rest are going to be this color for all these other cards. We just have that contrast too. And it kind of flows well with the color scheme that we have going on too. We could also make it white as well if we want to here. But the downside is it's going to be too much white next to each other. We don't want that. All right, so we're going to go to icons8.com, and we're just going to search exactly what we want. So the first thing we're going to put is workforce. And we can just search that and see exactly what comes up. So what we're going to do is click on recolor, and we're just going to input exactly what we want. And once we do that, press enter, and it's going to run everything and provide us different icons for that color. But we're going to just click on one that we think works best for us. I like this one, right? So this is going to be your company kind of hierarchy structure. We could download that. So go ahead and click on download. All right, so once we click on download, we're going to see an option to have the pixel size. So this one's going to be free. So I'm going to click on that one, click on download. All right, so we're now back in Power BI. So you can save it wherever you want. And we're going to go to insert. And I just want to test the first one that we brought in. So go ahead and go and find where your images are. And then once you have it here, I'm going to go ahead and decrease the size. I'm just going to bring it up here, align it, and there we have it. Just a little image that makes everything pop a little bit more. All right, so we're going to repeat the same process for everything else. We'll bring in our images. All right, so once you have all your images loaded, folks, this is exactly what it's going to look like. So I have my org structure here for my workforce analysis title. I have my employees. I have authorized with a check mark here. For inventory and total, I have just a building warehouse with some boxes. I have males, females. I have total hires. And then I have a downwards arrow for total losses. So this is it, folks. This is the entire dashboard. So this answers all the questions that were asked of us, right? It has gaps in teams. It has turbulence, so gains and losses over time over the next 180 days. What kinds of losses, males and females, that breakdown we have for losses and hires. And then we also have drill through so we can see current losses and hires as well. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and publish this. And I'm going to publish it to Nexion Analytics. I'm going to select it. All right, and then we're going to log into Power BI Service and view the report from there. All right, so once we're in Power BI, we're going to go ahead and go to Workspaces. Click on your workspace, and we're going to select the report. And now what I want to do is validate the interactivity, right? So this is going to be what the end user utilizes. So I'll go ahead and just click on a slicer, for instance, make sure everything worked properly. We have Austin selected here only, which is good. We have the losses and hires split up by the months as well that we wanted. We have the attrition reason. We can also select those. It's all interactive. And then let's go ahead and click on the drill through. So we have total for data analyst. I'm going to click on that and click on current. And now we have the by name list there too. All right, so it looks like everything works well, folks. You always want to ensure that you're testing your product thoroughly before you introduce it to somebody else or promote it or certify it as well. With that said, I know I covered a lot in this series, whether you watched the videos one at a time or you watched the whole video in its entirety from start to finish. Either way is awesome, but I hope that it helps you. And if you didn't like something or you like something, let me know. Leave a comment down below. Share your thoughts. And with that said, thanks for watching.